be discussing the scientific and mathematical aspects of man and its relation to nature. Now, I do not do any one religion because I've learned valuable truths from them all. And in a day and age where people are awakening to the deception that has been strategically woven in religions and government or church and state, one is reluctant to trust certain sources of information or truth. Before man had his tools of technology and deception, we learned from nature. Here on the University of Source Light, we're going to be learning from the same. When you take things back to the root of the issue at hand, you can then weed out the truth from error and deception. When you overlay supposed truth to the truths that are proven in nature, you can see what direction to take and change your perspective or way of thinking about things that may have had you confused. Now, I'm going to be using different references. I'll reference the Bible, articles, Wikipedia, math, and also good old science. If you have a lot of people who don't trust this and don't trust that, and rightfully so in their thinking. When I reference the Bible, it's not to promote Christianity or even praise the book itself. It's used as a metaphoric and allegorical way of teaching complex in the realms of belief versus know. The battle is not with them, it is for them. We teach the lost and lead them to the love and light that exists in us all. I'm not here to advocate any religion, any lifestyle, any political stance, anything like that. I have my own views, and so do all of you. We can come together and help build the temples inside each other by sharing our knowledge and perspective with one another, staying humble, respectable, and teachable the whole way through. When you discuss spiritual things, they're mostly taught in a metaphoric or symbolic way. Science and math also has a certain occultic speech or way of explanation. That's something that that I've noticed in studying this, all three of them. There's a lot of hidden or occultic wordplay and symbolism used in these subjects. You can have a statement. There are statements with double truth. It means one thing in one way of thinking or dimension and another thing in the next. To me, this is symbolism. It can be the symbolism of the biblical concept and revelation about the book being written on two sides and it being a double-edged sword. And, we know the saying, there are two sides to every coin. So when we consider also the changing of the languages, we know that this too can lead one to the wrong or erroneous perception of a truth. The true meaning of things has been hidden in various ways, but the truth is ever present in some form in nature. If we could just take the time to sit back and observe her, she would teach us all we need to know. The things were hidden in wordplay and symbolic reference. They use different ways of spelling a word to cast confusion. For example, if you take the word break, B-R-E-A-K, and B-R-A-K-E, they're the same word in phonetics, the way they are pronounced, both meaning to stop doing something or to stop doing some type of work. B-R-A-K-E just references a motor vehicle stopping the task of being in motion, and B-R-E-A-K references a body, another type of vehicle stopping a task or stopping work. And this is also a chemistry concept because when one is doing work, that's called kinetic energy, when something is doing work. And when it's not, it's potential energy, but it's still energy, though. Now, I'm not going to go deep into that subject at this time, but the sun is an energy source, and we're talking about the process in which a plant absorbs energy from the sun and creates food for itself, which is a form of energy, and it gives off oxygen, right? That's what photosynthesis is. Now, we also know that energy can come in many different forms, like there's chemical energy, light energy, sound, heat, electricity, etc. Now, another form of symbolism, for instance, that you'll see when discussing these subjects, when one talks about the heavens, it's symbolic of the mind, and plural because there are different states of mind that one can ascend to, and they're said to be different levels of heaven as well. The universe is symbolic of you and the inner spiritual workings thereof. Carbon is also you. The earth is the heart. Some say it's the brain, also, but and heart have the same letters in them. They just you just move the H to the end, and it's the same letters. It could be both, but anyway, the sun is the soul, or SOUL. And we also know that we refer to the sun as SOL. That means sun also. So that's another symbolism. And you also have a sun chakra, which is the yellow color. You have to read with the spiritual eye and hear with the spiritual ear. By using your tools that are unseen, you can tap into and see the unseen or the hidden occult meanings and separate the wheat from the tares. Now, without further ado, we're going to get into tonight's topic of discussion, spiritual photosynthesis. For those who are listening online, you're going to see a picture slideshow that has a process of photosynthesis in a few of those pictures in the few pictures in the slideshow. For those of you who are not, we'll go over them. It helps to see a picture for some who have a photographic memory or mind, such as myself. Before words, there were picture languages and or glyphs. And actually to speak in language, that's a primitive form of communication. You know, they say that the quote-unquote aliens communicate telepathically. You know, here again, we're talking about symbolism and all of that. So there's a truth to that. Okay, now also, it's the closest to man's natural state. As I said before, you know, we even had the language of words and stuff like that. This is why I always try to have a picture reference, you know, in that slideshow of some type when I'm discussing different topics. Okay, the process of photosynthesis. It's a 5-step process. I'm going to go over them all right now, and then I'm going to break each one of them down and discuss each one of them and their relation to your spiritual man. Step 1 is carbon dioxide. Its chemical formula is CO2. Carbon dioxide enters through the stomata in the leaves. Step 2, water enters through the roots. Step 3, sunlight is absorbed by chlorophyll and a chemical reaction takes place. Step 4, C6H12O6 is formed, and this is glucose. It's a simple sugar. And step 5, oxygen exits through the stomata. Okay, now we're going to first break down the word photosynthesis. The prefix photo means light, comes from the Greek phos, P-H-O-S. Now, syn, S-Y-N, means union or together. And thesis means to place, to put, to set. And the word, those two together, synthesis, means to make something by synthesis, especially chemically. And then if you take a modern day known definition of thesis, it's a document submitted in support of candidature for an academic or professional qualification representing someone's research and findings. You know, college papers, they talk about theses that they have to write and things of the sort. So now keep this in mind because we're talking about degrees of knowledge as well. We know knowledge is, you get degrees of knowledge. Okay. And with this suffix, like I said, in modern day knowledge, we think of that college, you know, paper. So we know that also in occult studies, when you're dealing with secret society organizations and stuff, there are different, you know, degrees and stuff there as well. And one speaks of becoming a master, you know, as well in occult studies. And it also, a thesis, it says under the definition of that, it says in some context the word thesis or a cognate is used for part of a bachelor's or a master's and doctorate. So this is something that one has to write in each, you know, pursuing each of these degrees. So we're talking about a plant in union with the light and a chemical process of making something, right? And we know that we have a connection to the sun, or the soul, we have a connection to that, and being in a state of mastery when doing so, we can even say, right, by breaking down the word, we can conclude, we can draw that conclusion from it. Now, the actual definition of the word photosynthesis is the process by which green plants and some other organisms use sunlight to synthesize foods from carbon dioxide and water. Photosynthesis in plants generally involves the green pigment chlorophyll and generates oxygen as a byproduct, right? Now, anytime you're talking about chemistry, you're referencing the science stemming from and related to the science of chemet. It's I know a lot of you listening, of course, have heard from Kemet. I know there are some that do not know. This is something that you can look up. Kemet, or the Black Lands. It's ancient, before Egypt, before all that. You'll get to the land of Kemet. And nature is the first teacher of man. They likened everything as unto nature and used the properties and energies of different animals to describe different things. You even hear people say, "Oh, they worship the sun." Well, did they? If once we get through with this, it's going to have you looking at it in a whole different perspective. So, like I said, they likened everything. They used things in nature to describe things. They wrote in hieroglyphs, and we, as the genetic descendants thereof, we can learn hidden sciences taken from us by likening everything and learning from nature. You know, like I said, people don't trust different sources. Well, this is something that you can look at, because we are plants. We can consider ourselves symbolically as plants. We're trees. We're trees of life. And we can apply this process of photosynthesis to ourselves as well, spiritually and symbolically, because they're one and the same. So learning from nature, if we take into account what the sun is and what it represents, the Son of God, the giver and sustainer of all life, we know this. This is what the sun is. The sun, or the SOL. Now, before we can even begin discussing spiritual photosynthesis, one has to at least have a sun in their sky. They have to have seen the light, because it has always been there. We know, so they have to see the light. Now, spiritually and symbolically, this seeing of the light can be applied to the right brain and the left brain coming together as one, transforming the person into a new being, possessing a new way of thinking. This, if one possesses a new way of thinking, then one has risen to a higher dimension of thought and existence. Stay with me now. When the light came on, or when you woke up, the sun, you now see the sun in the sky. The light is present. It's always been there. We know that. But now the hill hath its beacon. The pineal gland, or the third eye, is open and it sees the light. When we was talking about Jacob wrestling with the angels, said he wrestled all night, and when he called the place pineal, for there's where he saw God. Said the third eye, once you see the light, this is symbolic. You've now seen the Son of God. You've, quote unquote, found the Son of God, the giver and sustainer of all life, right? Okay, so if you didn't see the light at first, then that means you were in darkness at that time. Spiritually, still dead. Buried, and it's like buried, dead and buried, like the living dead, in a sense, in a zombie state, if you will, buried or sleeping in the earth. Kind of like when you go to plant seeds. When you plant a seed and it's in the ground or in the earth, symbolically, it's like it's dead, right? But living, because the center holds a form or stage of life, like the egg in an ovary. But before that happens, you have to what? You have to germinate the seed, meaning you have to soak it in water so that the root sprouts. Male and female must first come together, water and seed, left brain and right brain. Because remember, the sun is and always it's been there, right? Stay with me. Okay, now the water contents of hydrogen and oxygen make the root sprout, and it can now receive the first drops of water it's exposed to while soaking, while you're germinating the seed. This is spiritually saying before awakening can begin, one has to have soaked themselves in knowledge or waters for the root to sprout. They have to seek to know themselves and who and what they are. By doing this, they are trying to find where and what their being is rooted in. That's what they're trying to do. You're trying to find out who you are. What's going on? What is this? Where did I come from? What's this is going on? Now the roots sprout and then it's planted into the earth, right? But even before the roots sprout, it was a form of life. It was just dormant or sleep in some type, in a type of sleep state for its kind, being a seed, and waiting to be activated in the nucleus of the seed. Like I said, the living dead, if you will. Okay, now although the roots are still underground, it begins its journey of trying to reach the light. Right after you germinate that seed and put it in the ground, it starts trying to reach the light. So to me, this is saying there's a force or a form of energy that naturally begins to drive it to reach the light, to tell it to seek the light. Now, there's a scripture and a story in the Christian Bible where it tells us that every man has been given a measure of faith of that of a mustard seed. We know how big, how little it is, and how big that seed can grow, right? How big that tree can grow from the mustard seed. So we have all been given that seed that is a hope and a knowing of another, if not grander, life outside of this existence as a quote-unquote seed, spiritually, right? It simply must be germinated and cultivated and allowed to drive you to the light that's above ground. If you existed in the nucleus of your mother's egg before you were born, then you existed before outside of this existence. Nature and its laws and workings say you should do the same in another form. So for those of you who are currently at this moment existing in the form and stage of awakening in this dimension of thought and plane of existence, this message is one that you're going to want to listen to again, because we keep transforming, and the universal or natural truth can be applied in every dimension of thought in some form or another. Now, this is what is supposed to be realized when one is saying that they're awake or they're conscious. Or, no, they're not spiritually dead. You know, we know back in the day we talked about the churches that are spiritually dead and things like that. Now, when you become spiritually alive or awake or resurrected and raised upright as a living being, you are in remembrance or recognition or recognition of the direct connection that you have with your thing as the all, meaning all souls are present and recognized as being in existence as eternal living being. The SOUL or the SOL or the SUN has risen and there's life, right? Okay, now, we as I said, we're plants and we're trees of life, right? So we can apply this process to ourselves as well. Spiritually and symbolically, they are one. So we learn from nature. If we take into account what the sun is and what it represents, like I said, the giver and sustainer of life, the SOL, it is a food source to the tree. So we're going to discuss each step of photosynthesis and show the symbolic application to that of the awakening process and what goes on spiritually. There's going to be some basic chemistry and physical science and the periodic table of elements being discussed. You should be able to follow along because I'm simplifying these things as simple as it can get, I think. But if you get lost, just Google some of the things you hear and research and listen to the show again. Now, remember, some of you remember in physical science they had you drawing atoms. Remember scientific formulas of everyday things, and you sat there thinking, how am I going to use this? Where am I going to use this in life? Well, it's spiritual in nature. Of course, we didn't know that then, so it applies to all life. It's physical science, the elements, those things which affect and define your physical being. That's what it was talking about. Now, I also put a link on the show for those of you who are listening online. You'll see it there in the write-up about the show to this article that spoke of having scientific proof that memories are passed down genetically. Now, this is not saying that just started happening, of course. It's saying that they now have some type of empirical evidence to prove such. We even speak of our ancestors and being connected to them. They exist within us. We can draw from and tap into the eternal knowledge that is your genetic pool, which has been around for thousands and thousands of years. Now, so think about that. Do you know how many beings had to come together and exist for you even to be existing right now? Stop and think about that. Your grandma, your great-grandma, your great-grandma, great-great-great-great-great. Stop and think about that. So these are all the minds and knowledge that you have access to. This is why you see families have an occupation that they go into. You have a family of doctors or you have a family of lawyers. That's because it's literally in their blood to do such and in their minds. Now, like I said, I provided a link for that article. I just needed to reference that because that article has a lot to do with what we're talking about tonight as well. It ties into it. Now, the application of this knowledge is most relevant in these times as far as this information being passed down and stuff, and in this study of subject that we're embarking on today. This is what's happening all over the world with us as the descendants of beings who have at one time tapped into the knowledge vein of their bloodline. At one time or another, someone or a group of someones in your bloodline had become self-aware, became an awakened being, self-sustaining spiritually or energy-wise. If only your ancient ancestors, but somebody in your bloodline became aware of the process and what was going on, converting lighter knowledge into a form of energy. And these things are passed down with information and everything. Okay, so step one. Now we're going to get into breaking all of these things down and how they apply. Step one, carbon dioxide enters through the stomata of the leaves. Two, remember I said that's the chemical formula. Now the chemical element of of carbon is 6. The atomic number of carbon is 6, and it's a non-metal, and it has 2 forms, diamond and graphite. And that also occurs in impure form in charcoal, soot, and coal. Now, these things are said to be black and in impure form, right? All living things on Earth contain carbon. It's in everything, even you. Like the ratio in carbon in the human is for every 100 pounds of you, 18 pounds of it is carbon. Now, like I said, the formula is CO2 for carbon dioxide. This means for every 2 oxygen atoms, there's 1 carbon atom, right? Carbon is also melanin. Carbon dioxide is a gas, right? It's unseen, odorless, colorless. So symbolically, its nature is of the spirit realm, we can say. We can liken that unto the spirit realm. Its components consist of 2 oxygen atoms covalently bonded to a carbon atom. And a covalent bond, what that is, it's a chemical bond that involves the sharing of electrons between 2 atoms, right? Now, so we're dealing with carbon dioxide. Di means 2, or to divide, and this is fairly common in chemistry. Occasionally, di can be short for the prefix dis. Now, this normally only happens before the letter V. The prefix dis means apart or asunder, to divide, like I said. Stay with me. This is what happened when you were step one of the process for a reason, because looking on a deeper level of understanding, we can apply this knowledge to your being. Oxygen, right, whose atomic number is 8, and carbon is 6 on the periodic table of elements. Now, 6 in Christianity religions, they say 6 is the number of man. And they also have the 6-pointed star. This representing some people call it the Star of Israel. You know, it's just how different things have been changed with religions. But the 6-pointed star representing male, upward, and female, downward, coming together as one. It's also called the Merkabah. And also we know that 6 is the base number of the Hebrew language. Now, 8 symbolic and spiritual reference. 8 is symbolic of completion, eternity. Now, if you even take 2 number 6s and put them together like in a mirrored reflection, they even make a number 8. And I even remember in my younger days seeing guys shoot dice on the block, and when their point was 8 or 6, they would say, hey, 6 and 8 is running mates. You know, stop and think about these things. Just really stop and think about it, because we know that there's no such thing as coincidences. Okay, so carbon dioxide, like I said again, consists of 2 oxygen atoms and can be symbolically likened to the 2 souls of being, the souls of 2 beings coming together, chemically bonded to a carbon atom, a body, be it male or female. They either had a male or female. As I said, compared to you, you are a tree of life. So the first step is the carbon dioxide entering into the leaves of the plant, right? You this tree of life. You even look at the family tree layout, like even for those of you who have done ancestry, you know that even the leaves of the trees are the slots where the parents and their child go. Now the carbon dioxide enters through the stomata of the leaves, right? The origin of the prefix stoma is Greek, and it means mouth, right? Stomata is the plural form of that word. So this allows the plant to receive gases. The stomata, that's where the gases go through, the carbon dioxide. Same as through your mouth, you receive air or gas, a type of gas, right? You receive your gases. Okay, so back to the process. We have carbon dioxide, step one being absorbed by the leaves. Okay, so next, step two. It says that water is absorbed from the roots. Now, here's where that ancestry article also comes in that I was talking about earlier. Water is symbolic of knowledge, and the roots are symbolic of our ancestry. So the article spoke of memories and knowledge being passed down genetically. This is the age of Aquarius reference as well. You hear people talk about the subject in the form of years, or they say, no, it's supposed to be here, it's supposed to be there, and they go back and forth about when it's supposed to begin. I myself don't do this because time is created by man and is an illusion. And so those who have the ability to look through time and may not have always gotten the time right. There are different calendars and everything. I personally feel that the signs of the times are present in the affairs of the times. And when trying to pinpoint different quote-unquote prophecies being fulfilled, I believe it's wise to go by what you see, not a time stamp that is even could have been changed to mislead. And again, like I said, time does not exist in every dimension. And if something doesn't exist in every dimension, then it cannot be used as a governing factor when dealing with things of a prophetic nature, or spiritual nature that are not subject to. And right now we clearly see that this is the age of waters and knowledge. This is the age of light beings coming from above, and the knowledge of being absorbed from the roots or ancestry or the genes as well. We see that this is going on right now. So when the waters are absorbed from the roots combined with the light in the mind or the sky, step 3 then of the spiritual photosynthesis takes place, right? Now step 3 tells us that it's when light is absorbed by the chlorophyll, the chemical reaction takes place. Now, what is chlorophyll? You say, what is chlorophyll? Let's look at that definition. Chlorophyll is a green pigment present in all green plants and in cyanobacteria, responsible for the absorption of light to provide energy for photosynthesis. Its molecule contains a magnesium atom held in a porphyrin ring. Magnesium, so it contains a magnesium atom. Keep that in mind. Now, when we take into account the biblical enactment of creation, it is even in the 3rd verse that says, let there be light, and it was so. This is the quote-unquote chemical reaction occurring. Now, remember what chemistry is. So when light is so, it is immediately being absorbed. When we see the seed finally break through that ground after being germinated and planted, and then the leaves finally break up, it immediately sees and feels the light that has already been there, and it immediately begins to absorb it. Immediately. And it immediately begins to grow from it. Now, if its receptors or there's something wrong, or if this spiritual plant, is not receiving this, then that means that there's something keeping it from receiving the information or being able to absorb the light, let's say. Then what does that mean? That means it doesn't have the nutrient or element that's needed to do such, the chlorophyll. But as again, we said that what is chlorophyll? It's that magnesium atom in the porphyrin ring. Okay, so what is magnesium? Let's look at magnesium. Magnesium is the chemical element. It has an atomic number of 12, and it says that it's a silver white metal of alkaline earth series. Keep that in mind because we're going to discuss that later. It's very important. A silver white metal of the alkaline earth series. It is used to make strong, lightweight alloys, especially for aerospace industry, and it's also used in flash bulbs, pyrotechnics, because it burns with a brilliant white flame. It does. Now, few people we're not even aware of the role that magnesium plays in our health. It's important to every function in the Bible. Every function in the body and tissue, every tissue in the body. And it supports a healthy immune system. It prevents inflammations associated with certain cancers. It boosts the heart, and it could even cut your risk for a heart attack. There's a Harvard study that found out that high daily magnesium intake could reduce the risk of developing diabetes by 33%. Now, that's a nice number. Still, other studies have found out that the mineral even helps ward off depression and even migraines, right? Now, this is important to note about diabetes and its relevance because this is something that plagues us, right? And if the next step in the process, step 4 that we're going to get to in a minute, is the process in converting light to sugar as an energy source or food supply, well, if the increase in magnesium can reduce the risk of diabetes, then it's because it increases the person's ability to absorb sunlight and convert it naturally to regular sugars. That has to be why it helps. Stop and think about this. This is a natural element. Okay, and then if you apply the symbolic and spiritual application even to the reduction of the migraine claims. Now, we know what migraines are. They strong headaches, right? We're dealing with that mind space, This is a pain in the mind, and it's almost all the time. People who suffer from migraines, they have a sensitivity to light. You'll hear that all the time. And it makes perfect sense if we symbolically even apply this information that we're discussing, because one would be sensitive to light if you don't have enough magnesium in your system to absorb it. It makes perfect sense, causing a pain in the head or mind. Now, the actual migraine is yet to be satisfied empirically for science, but this fact of nature, in photosynthesis and its symbolic application to that of man as a tree of life, and it is scientific truth for me personally. I mean, like I said, when you see things line up and certain things, and they line up with things that are in nature, you can pretty much take that to the bank. Now, we say, how do you get magnesium? We know they have supplements for everything, but it's better, we know, also to get the vitamins and stuff that you need naturally from food, the foods that you do eat. So I'm going to go over a few foods that you can eat to get magnesium in your diet. First one, nuts and nut seeds, like almonds, Brazilian nuts, cashews, pecans, some seeds of sunflower seeds and flax seeds. Another good source is fish and avocados, bananas, even dark chocolate is a source of magnesium. Also, the leafy greens like baby spinach, collards, and kale, those are good sources of magnesium. And then with the beans, you have black beans. I personally love black beans. You have black beans, kidney beans, white beans, chickpeas, black-eyed peas, and lentils. All of those are good source of magnesium. And also low-fat yogurt is a really good source of magnesium as well. Now, I'm going to stop right here and take a break for a second, and let me get on the line and let me take a caller and see if they have any questions thus far. Hello, caller. Your phone number ends in 7059. Hi, you're on the line live.
Hello there.
Hello.
I'm blessed. I'm learning so much. I have my pad and my pencil, and I'm writing down. It's very, very interesting, and I will be going over it again. I'm one of God's kind of special slow children, but I can understand, and I certainly can agree that nature teaches us a lot. We are nature,
Exactly.
We are nature, amen. We cannot be separated from that. We are the earth, we are of the earth. God bent down in Genesis and created man from this dirt, this earth. So we cannot separate it. And so it's really interesting. I wasn't really sharp in science in school, and so I'm really having to listen hard and everything, but I am learning a lot. Thank you for the study.
Well, good, good. I'm glad you are learning. And like I said, we all have those subjects that we thought, well, what am I going to ever use this for? And then when you
Right.
begin to embark on this journey, you be like, oh. But, I mean, even, just taking the time and realizing that even with what we're talking about right now, it's not even necessarily important to have a lot of knowledge about the subject and what we're talking about as far as the science of formulas,
Right.
but just to understand the elements that we're talking about and paying attention to even the numbers, how many atoms it is. That's
Right.
the main important thing, because when we continue on the 28th with the second part, you have time to go check out a few things here and there and let it absorb, maybe listen to it again. So when the next part comes, you'll have enough knowledge of the subject that we're talking about to where you can get a better understanding of it.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to put you back on the line. Okay, and we're going to take a short break song I'm going to take real quick to let this information absorb and take care of a few other things. You're listening to University of Source Light. I'm your host, Africa, and tonight we're talking about spiritual photosynthesis, the transformation of light. We'll be back shortly. Good evening. Hetepu, welcome back, everybody. You're listening to University of Source Light. We're discussing spiritual photosynthesis, the transformation of light. I'm your host. My name is Africa. And just to recap, we went through step 1, 2, and 3. Step 1, we first talked about the carbon dioxide entering into the leaves of the plant. We liken that as unto the gas coming, or the two coming together of your mother and father coming together in your body as this gas that consists of 3 elements, so a certain type of trinity, if you will, coming down and entering into the leaves of the trees, right? And then step 2 was we discussed the waters being absorbed, and we discussed how that relates to the knowledge from your ancestors and the things that's in your bloodline that has been absorbed and stored in your tree of life. And step 3, we talked about the absorption of the light, the chemical reactions that took place. We talked about how in the Bible that also in the 3rd verse it says, let there be light, and there was so. So the plant is saying, let there be light, let me get some light, absorb the light, and then the chemical reaction took place. And it was so. Okay, now we're on step 4. 4 in the process is when the sugar is made. So it's got that light, it's absorbed it into the plant, the chemical reaction has taken place, and now the sugar or the glucose is made. Now this formula of this simple sugar is C6H12O6. That means that there's 6 carbon atoms, there's 12 hydrogen atoms, and there's 6 oxygen atoms. Okay, now this conversion of light into an energy source or food source for the plant, this is the conversion of light, into an energy or food source for the plant, this step. It stores it in the parts of the plant. The storing and such can also be looked at symbolically too, like I said, about passing the memories and knowledge down the tree of life. This storing of food, or we can look at it as spiritual food, and knowledge symbolically is the fact that light or knowledge, experiences, and memories are stored in the genes of the tree of life, and it's passed down genetically, and this affects every aspect of the tree or the gene pool. We even know about, addictions and things like that. They say these different things are passed down, and when you begin to study, genes and stuff like that, you'll see this. I'm not saying I've had a lot of study in the subject, but I have looked at certain things, and you can see it. Now, one relevant subject that we're going to get into right now really quick for all of those who are Christians or who are, who study the Bible, if that's where you are right now, we're going to show you where I'm going to show you here in this story about the Sumerian woman, the woman at the well. Show you a symbolic reference to where we're at right now. Now we're on step 4. Okay, now I know the story, and I'm not going to read the whole chapter of 4. I'm just going to jump here and there to the relevant parts. It talks about the woman of Samaria. She went to draw water and from the well, and Yeshua said, "Give me a drink." And the disciples had said that they had went to go buy meat, right? And the woman of Samaria, she asked them, she said, "How is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans." This is what she told him, right? And we know that Yeshua answered and said unto her, "If thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, Give me to drink, thou wouldest have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water." And then she said unto him, "Sir, thou hast nothing, you ain't got nothing to draw it with." She said, "The well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water?" Where is that living water at? Because you ain't got nothing to draw with. This is what she's saying. "Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself and his children and his cattle?" Then Yeshua answered her, Whoso drinketh of this water shall never thirst again. But whosoever drinketh the water that I shall give him shall never thirst, but the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up unto everlasting life, right? Keep that in mind. The woman said, then she said, give me some of this water that I thirst not, so I don't got to come here and draw no more. And he told her to go get a husband, right? She said, I ain't got a husband, and he said, you got 5 of them. You know, we know this part going down to the story, and he said, even the one you with right now is not your husband. And she said, that's when she said, you got to be a prophet. And then it skips down to John 4:20. I'm sorry, we're in John chapter 4. Then it skips down to 4:20. Says, our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where we should worship. And he told her, you believe me, it's coming an hour when you ain't going to worship in this mountain or in Jerusalem. And he said, worship the Father. Okay, then it goes down to say, but cometh. Oh, no, check this. I'm sorry, I'll skip the scripture. 22. Now, this is important. Say, ye worship what ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But for the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship in spirit and truth. Okay, now, keep in mind that this is a woman from Samaria. When we say, well, where is Samaria at? Let's take a look at this, because he told her that she worship what she know not. And they know the salvations of the Jews. And she asked him, why are you asking me for water? What is water symbolic of? You a Jew. You're supposed to know. What you asking me for? Okay, now Samaria is looking up, and right now I'm in Wikipedia. It says that it's also known as Jabal Nablus, and then it has the Greek name. I can't pronounce it. It's a name for a mountainous central region of the ancient Levant, based on the borders of the biblical northern kingdom of Israel, and especially the Israelite tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. The name Samaria derives from the ancient city of Samaria, the capital of the kingdom of Israel. In modern times, the territory is generally and almost universally known as the West Bank, right? But when it was called Samaria, it's telling you that was the tribe where Ephraim and Manasseh, the tribes, where they supposed to be from, the capital of Israel, right? But he telling her, and she's asking him, why are you asking me for water when you're supposed to be a Jew? And he telling her, you worship what you know not. They supposed to be from the same tribes, in a sense, from the same nation. And he telling her, you don't know what you worship. And you even see the rhetoric that he was speaking in. We're talking about water. Keep this in mind. Stay with me. He asked for the water, talking about the well is deep. He said he got something, you won't even be thirsty no more. This is what it's saying, right? Okay, then we come down to here, and it says in 25, the woman says unto him, I know that the Messiah cometh, which is called Christ. He is come, he is telling us all things. And it says, Yeshua saith unto her, I that speak to thee am he. Now, even why does it say that? Is he saying, that's me? He didn't say that's me, but he said, I that speaking to thee. So who you hear speaking, that's also a spiritual reference. They're not necessarily referencing a body, but the knowledge or the mind that he's speaking from right now. That's who is speaking to you right now. Okay, then it says that then the disciples came back, and they even wondered, why he talking? What are you talking to her for? And so the woman, she left her pot right there and say she went into the city, right? She telling everybody, come see this man that told me everything, right? And then in the meanwhile, down in 31, it says that the disciples, while his disciples prayed him, saying, Master, eat. But he said unto them, I have meat to eat that you know not of, right? Therefore says the disciples one to another, hath any man brought him, somebody bring him something to eat? No, that's not what he's talking about. And then he said to him, my meat is to do the will of them that sent me and to finish the work. Say not ye, there are 4 months, and then the harvest come? Behold, I say, lift up your eyes and look on the fields, for they are white and ready to harvest. Keep that in mind. Like I said, the woman is asking, he asked her for water. We're talking about water symbolically. What is that? She says, well, what you want it from me for? Now, he's talking about also meat that they don't know not of, and his will being that of them that sent. him. The sun sent him. The source of all life sent him. And he says the fields are white, all ready to harvest. Now, magnesium, as we talked about earlier, which is what's needed to what? Absorb the light or the knowledge. He says the fields are white with harvest. That's magnesium. They are ready to absorb the light. They are ready to absorb the light and grow, and they're ready to be harvested. Just think about the symbolism of that. In the plant, we just talked about step 1, 2, and 3. 1, the sun shining and them absorbing the light. Step 2 was the drawing it up from the roots, the water. Step 3, the chemical reaction take place. Step 4, made the food, got meat that you know not of. Stay with me now. Okay. He said that he had meat that they know not of, and that he has an unseen food source that sustained his being, but by doing what he was created to do. This is a spiritual photosynthesis being discussed. He's absorbed the light and converted into a food source and or energy source that they had no knowledge of. If you think about this process and how it perfectly overlays, this is what was being hidden in this rhetorical way of speaking and with the things that he was asking her. This is what was going on. We know that all these things that this being, Yeshua, they're in parables. The things that he spoke of, they're in parables or stories or poetry in a sense. Okay, now step 5, we're up to step 5, is when the oxygen exits through the stomata. So same way the carbon dioxide, as we know, plants and trees give off oxygen. We know that. But spiritually and symbolically, let's look at what that's talking about. Now remember the atomic numbers again of carbon and oxygen. Carbon is 6 and oxygen is 8. Now remember the two 6s together make an 8. The ratio for the carbon dioxide is 2 to 1 in favor of oxygen. Remember that? For every 2 oxygen atoms, there's 1 carbon dioxide atom. So step 5 says that the oxygen exits. But what happens to the carbon? What was it used for? Well, we know some of it was used for that. Well, all of it had to be used to make that sugar. Of course, right? Because the chemical formula of the sugar it made, remember, it was C6H12O2. So if we look at it, like I said in the beginning, the two souls, oxygen atoms bonding to one body, remember carbon atoms, then at the final stage, this makes sense. Because the only thing that will be released or sent into the air will be the completely transformed being who has now 8. Right? Oxygen, complete eternity, alone without its body, because its body stays in the earth. The carbon stays behind, and it's a part of the tree. So now, being at the level of completion as 8, just as oxygen, it exits. Now, this is an eternal being who has entered into immortality, Godhood, or an eternal life in a sense. The oxygen is released in the air. 8 is released in the air. Eternal life is released in the mind of the being. This says to me that when the tree of life has gone through the process of absorbing, transforming the light, then they ascend into the air or the heavens as an immortal number 8, as an eternal being, as an eternal spirit, a gas, or a higher state of being, in this eternal process of transforming the light, or spiritual photosynthesis, absorbing the light from the sun. What is the sun? Stay with this symbolic way of thinking. And we've all even heard that song. We sung it in church. And Tina Turner movie. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Well, we all have that light. Now, whether it's turned on and shining or not is a different thing, but we all have that light. And the more magnesium in your system, compared to the chlorophyll of the plant, remember, the more naturally effective will the light be to your being, and you'll naturally and effectively be able to transform it physically as well as spiritually and absorb it and be able to understand the hidden meaning behind the things, these spiritual things, these scientific things, these mathematical things. You'll be able to spiritually absorb the hidden meanings of things and see things with the mind's eye. That light will be on. You are what you eat. We know this. So if you're reaching towards the light, as all seeds and plants do, we got that force driving us to the light, driving us to the sun. There's something behind us, just pushing us, making us do this, making us search, making us research, making us driving us to the light. Then you must make sure you can absorb the light. There's certain things that you have to, pieces of knowledge that you have to be able to absorb and transform into food and energy and be able to release into the air, into the atmosphere. So when this oxygen is released into the air, it simply repeats the process over and over again, but in different dimensions and in higher ascension fields. Talked about the different levels of heaven. Now, or the levels of dimensions of the mind. And one releases the oxygen, where does it go? We know that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? So if it's being released into the atmosphere, then what is it done? What's being done with it? Now consider the anomaly of the black hole, and like we said, the universe is symbolic of the workings of how things are going on inside of you spiritually. It can be compared to that. Now this piece right here, it's from an article that I read, that I got online about a black hole. It says we cannot glimpse at what lies inside the event horizon of a black hole because light or material from there can never reach us. Even if we could send an explorer into the black hole, she could never come back and communicate with us. Current theories predict that all the matter in a black hole is piled up in a single point at the center, but we do not understand how this central singularity works. To properly understand the black hole center requires a fusion of the theory of gravity with the theory that describes the behavior of matter on the smallest scale called quantum mechanics. Now, this unifying theory has already been given a name, quantum gravity, but how it works is still unknown. This is one of the most important unsolved problems in physics. Studies of the black holes may one day provide the key to unlock this mystery. So it's basically telling you that they don't even know what a black hole is, right? And it even says Einstein's theory of general relativity allows unusual characteristics for black holes. For example, the central singularity point might form a bridge to another universe. This is similar to a so-called wormhole. Bridges and wormholes might allow travel to other universes or even time travel. But without observational experimental data, this is mostly speculation. So they can't get no evidence for it because they can't actually perform any type of studies or go there, send anything there. We do not know whether a bridge or wormholes exist in the universe or could even have formed in principle. By contrast, black holes have been observed to exist, and we understand how they form. Now, okay, that's the end of the part of that article. It says we're talking about the oxygen being released in the air and the process of photosynthesis. Back to that. It says the oxygen is released into the atmosphere. So if it's released into the atmosphere, something is sucking it out of the atmosphere as well, right? Equal and opposite reaction. Knowing that the universe is symbolic of the spiritual workings in man, symbolically, it makes one believe that the black hole is a place that sucks in the being to another existence. I mean, that makes sense. Somewhere in the universal plane. The continued cycle of life and spiritual photosynthesis in another form, in another space, in another time. Now, also there, it puts you into the mind of the Russian dolls and the Chinese boxes. And Russian dolls and Chinese boxes, for those of you who may not know about those, leave us a link in that article about the, passing down memories to that subject. Also, I'm not sure. But it says the Russian doll is similar to Chinese boxes, and this shows how space can incorporate other objects within itself. one doll inside another doll, inside another doll, inside another doll. This happens because each of the dolls are in proportion, exact ratio to others. One may be smaller, having different measurements, but when the measurements are calculated against each other, they're the same ratio. So that's like symbolically showing you that even when this shell breaks off, there's another and another and another and another. And getting back to the subject of absorbing the light, the sun, that was the end of step 5. We naturally come to the subject of melanin. Now, we know that melanin is present in Nubian people and it's present in everybody. It's more present, more prominent in the darker complected beings. That is science. Okay, and it's present, and it helps activate the sensors that receive the information or knowledge or water that is absorbed by the roots. So the more you have, the more you can naturally receive. Sunlight is an energy source. Same way when we plug in a computer, the electricity actually makes it turn on, right? But if you don't have certain software or coding, then the computer, it just can't perform certain functions. So apply this to yourself. You can have life or the signs of life. They've got the power. Remember the kinetic energy versus potential. But if you're not able to decode the messages and encryptions the sunlight sends off, then you're not able to perform certain functions. And process and transforming the light is one of them. You're just not going to be able to even think in the certain way. You don't have the elements in your body in this temple that you need in order to be able to begin functioning and on the path that you're supposed to be functioning on. You know, and you also hear when you study the subject of melanin, like I said, I know a lot of us know about it. A lot of people have never heard about melanin, haven't studied it or anything. But some people think, oh, I'm black, I got melanin, I'm a god, case closed. And now, even though things are passed down genetically, like we said, you're able to absorb more, you still have to acquire the knowledge of that subject. Even a child who may come from a long line of doctors, they're not born knowing all the knowledge and science of that field. That's just not how it happens. They still have to go to school and study and unearth the knowledge that lies dormant in their genes. Now, when they begin to study, they may even feel as if they are just rehashing some things that they already know because it's in their genes. Now, it might even make it easier in most cases for them to excel in that field, but they don't just automatically know all there is to know about medicine or law because the teachings are in their blood. Like I said, they may be able to expound on more and even make new discoveries based on the indwelling genetic years of experience they naturally have. But even to do that, you still have to speak the language. And by doing that, you have to study. And that's where the confusion lies. Also, we know this in the language. That's Christianity even 101, the Tower of Babel, and that's where the confusion lies, in the language of symbols, science, and math, and in the language of wordplay and religion's allegorical stories and teachings. And getting back to carbon, the chemical element, like we said, the atomic number of carbon is 6, and it's a non-metal. Remember we said that has 2 main forms, diamond and graphite, and that also occurs in impure form of charcoal, soot, and coal. Now, these things are black and said to be in impure form. Even legally and nationality-wise, to refer to yourself as quote-unquote black is saying that you're spiritually dead. When you research the subject, a lot of you people know this who are listening and will listen. You know this, there's some that don't. Nature tells you that that's not your quote-unquote pure form. Clearly, the diamond is your highest, that's you at your highest potential. Shine bright like a diamond. Most of us have heard the statement even that pressure does what? Bust pipes, or it makes diamonds. So that force that's driving on that plant, what is it going to bust pipe? It's going to bust through? Or it's going to make diamonds. It's going to drive you crazy, because you don't know what's going on. Why am I thinking like this? What's going on? And also a diamond, you've heard the statement, a diamond in the rough. Well, what is a diamond in the rough? A lump of coal. These things are coupled together for the sake of their natural truth, saying these things and inhering these things. When one embarks on the journey of awakening, they are a lump of coal in a sense. Then the pressure or the force that drives them to the light begins to do its job. And the process will either bust your pipes, like I said, it'll either drive you crazy, or to make a diamond out of you, with you shining brightly and brilliantly. Now, we should learn from nature, or Mother Nature. Her lessons are available to all of us who desire to learn them. If you just study her ways and study her seasons, she doesn't lie. She can't. It's not in her nature. It's just not. And getting back to the nutritional aspect of the subject, one thing that we can also do, we know that plants, of course, they're rooted in the earth and they absorb sunlight. There's a process or an activity that one can do called grounding. A lot of people, like I said, listen, I know you know about this, but this is not just catered to everyone, and I try to touch everyone in their level and where they are. But grounding is you just sit in the yard, put your feet in the dirt, preferably on a sunny day every day, because you can always absorb the energy from Earth. We know we can't see energy, so you can't actually see the process going on. You can't actually see the roots of the trees drawing up the water or drawing up the energy from the ground. You can't actually see the sunlight being absorbed, but we know that it's taking place. It's happening. And it sounds like something simple. They tell us, keep it simple, stupid. My mom used to say that all the time. But if we're looking at nature, and if we're learning in nature, and we're going back to our first teacher, what we used to love was nature, and the workings thereof of the universe, and how grand it was of these things that were created for us to enjoy. And so grounding is something, like I said, that we can do. Just sitting in the ground, putting your feet barefoot, seasons permitted, of course. And even sitting there with socks, it's still, if you have to, if it's chilly outside, it still does it. And absorbing the sun and absorbing the energy from the earth simultaneously, it does so much. Words can't even, you can't even put it in words. You just have to do it. You just have to try it. And also, another thing, rehashing the foods with magnesium in them. I'll go over those again. And like I said, it's nuts and seeds such as almonds, Brazilian nuts, cashews, pecans, sunflowers, and flax seeds. We have fish, avocado, bananas, dark chocolate. We have your leafy greens, baby spinach, collards, and kale, those types of leafy greens. The beans, we have black beans, kidney beans, white beans, chickpeas, black-eyed peas, and lentils, and also low-fat yogurt. And another thing spiritually that we need to eliminate from our diet is, I know you all heard this plenty of times before, but is pork. Even spiritually and symbolically, we're talking about spiritual and symbolic teachings. Consider the story of the Yeshua casting the demons into the pigs, into the pork. It's like people say, oh, well, Yeshua changed all of that, when he came. But the book even tells you that. He said he came not to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. So even those who use that and who are on that level of understanding and who, are still on the belief versus the know, it's like, well, even if that's your book and what you believe in, you're not even doing what it says and you're changing it. You're saying that it's okay because nowhere else these things said it's okay, but when somebody else comes to you and say this, you'll argue them down and they're just telling you what it says, what you're supposed to be believing. But like I said, and then health-wise, it does so much spiritual-wise, mental-wise. It just mentally, it does so much for you spiritually. It's hard, I thought I could never give up bacon. I'm like, what? Bacon? I can't have it for real? But it's not easy, but it is doable, and it's definitely worth it. And we have to stop and think. As I said, we pass certain things down. We even know that we pass sicknesses down. So when you learn something about, your body and some valuable information, it's important, and you owe it to the tree of life that is your genetic gene pool to change these things if you have the power to do so. And we know that we all have the power to do so. It's just about applying it and staying the course. And we can do all things. There's nothing impossible for us. It's just about putting your mind to it. It's all about the mind. It's all about the mind. They say a mind is a terrible thing to waste. They even talk about, you only use so much of your brain. These things are true. We limit ourselves for when we don't believe certain things and that are truth. We block ourselves from certain understandings of certain subjects. I see we have a question. I see a hand up right here. I'm going to go ahead and get to that. Hello, 77059. I see you put your hand up. You have a question?
Yes, I'm still hanging on. And maybe not so much a question, but a comment going through the photosynthesis steps. And the last one, you said oxygen is number 8, which is it the number of completion, you said?
Correct, in eternity.
In eternity, right. And how you were talking about the last number 8 being the last of the 5 steps, and how it turns back into the oxygen state, and it just reminds me of the scripture that says flesh and blood cannot enter the kingdom of heaven.
Come on now.
I love it.
It's metaphysical, it's allegorical, it's parable.
I love it.
They talk about the Son of God. Come on,
all my, I'm always science, because science, many scientists step out to disprove God, and all they do is run right into him. I just love that. And so I like this teaching. I've never heard anything like it before, but I'm seeing it, and it's awesome. But for that to turn into the last thing is that gas or that air that goes upward, and say the sense of us after we've gone through these steps and reached that completion and we're ready to go back to eternity. God gave me the ability to write a post on Facebook about eternity. Wish you were able to go and look at that, but I did not have this information. But the scripture says flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of heaven. And many of us want to go to heaven, but we don't understand that we have to turn into that spiritual, that faith. Come on, we got to take off this mortality, this flesh and blood. Amen. And this is an awesome example of just how that's going to take place. We are people who want to know. We want knowledge and stuff, and many of us can accept things when we understand how and receive knowledge. And so I just think that is so awesome. That makes sense to me. When I've reached where I'm supposed to reach, this tree, and used up my glucose and the sun and the water and all this, and I've gotten down to that oxygen state, and I'll exist as that spirit. Hallelujah, I just love it. I tell you, I've tried. If anybody out there got questions, they said push that number 1. I want to hear some more comments and questions. I'm really enjoying this, Miss Africa. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you're doing it. I'm so glad you got something out of it and are able to put it together and see the symbolic spiritual picture and the alignment with nature. I mean, it's not something that can be disputed. It lines up in every dimension in religion, mathematics, and even the biblical for those who will not get outside of that. What was being talked about with the waters and the well and the knowledge and making the food, and come on now, what process? That's the only thing that fits. Come on now. So I'm so glad I was able to deliver it in the way that you could see the way that it lines up. I'm so glad. That gives me so much joy, so much joy. I thank you for your comment, sister. Thank you.
Amen.
So much, so much. Okay, we're going to put you back on the line. This information that I'm sharing with you guys tonight is information that I'm covering in my book that I'm writing. One of the books that I'm writing, actually, it's a book that I break these things down in a very simple form, and I go into detail and show the different lineups versus science versus math, and then the biblical. And when things line up in every dimension and in nature, when things line up in all four of those, you're going to really be able to see certain things that you just didn't see before. And like I said, I aim to finish that project by the end of this year. So for those who would like to get a hold of that, keep in mind. And these topics that I'm discussing on the show, like I said, on University of Source Light, we're going to be dabbling into different things that are in the book, going through a short version of it. Believe it or not, this is a short version of this topic as well. There are a lot of things that I've just am not able to go into in detail on the air versus you seeing these things on paper and certain pictures and things that I have to draw out to show certain things. But definitely something to look out for, and I hope that you guys get out of it what I put into it. Also, as I said, the website, www.studentsofthough.com. That's an online social network that I've created, and several members of Astro Warriors and Students of Thought contribute different things to it. Would love for you to make a profile if you want to grow and learn different things that you don't hear on the mainstream, and a different way of teaching and learning, and have access to different ebooks and stuff. Make sure you make your profile. We have some books that are 100, even 200 and 300 years old. So, it's a lot of ancient knowledge and stuff, and it'll really help you put things together before things begin to get really messed up. We know this deception has been woven over centuries, but time over years and years and years. But with different tools that are not exactly mainstream, it just allows you access to be able to understand things a little bit more. Like I said, the next show that we're going to be having, I'm going to be finishing up with this topic and going over some things that that pertain to this subject. And then I'm going to have a sister on the line with me. She's an awesome sister, very knowledgeable, getting ready to get her PhD in metaphysics. She also does women holistic health. Very knowledgeable sister. She's going to be on the show sharing some things as well that she has prepared for you guys. And I would love for you guys to listen in. Again, that's going to be on the 28th of January. So we'd love, like I said, we'd love for you to listen in. We also have a youth organization called Your Gift Makes Room. It's a children's cultural education program. And with that, it's a way for children to learn about their culture outside of what's being taught in school. We don't do the Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, February topics. They're going to be learning about, they learn about the greatness that is in their culture, and a lot of different aspects, starting at a young age. That way that by the time they get our age, they're so much more ahead of the game than we are. We have to go back and correct these things in our gene pools, individually in our families and as a whole. We owe it to ourselves This is what we're lacking. This is what needs to be done. And we all have a teacher. You know, we go looking for different churches and stuff like that. But there comes a time when you're supposed to grow up and realize that you are that temple. And you know, when you're ready, there will be people that come into your life that can help you and that can guide you along the way. But you have a teacher. If nothing else, you have good old nature. Like I said, it just takes time, a few studies and stuff, and with the help of a few people that will be placed in your past, because that's how the universe turns. When you set your mind to something, to do something, or you want to know something, the universe and every molecule in it is going to move and make these things happen and put these things in your path and people, everything that you need to do what it is that your mind is focused on. When you set your mind to something and stay the course, don't doubt, know the power that's working, know what it is you're doing and why you're doing it and how you're doing it, these things will come to pass. And it's not about worrying about how, you know, that they'll come to pass. So, like I said, the kids organization, you can like us on Facebook, Your Gift Makes Room, read about exactly how that goes. You can participate online or locally here where we're located. That information is on the site as well as Facebook. And we also have the adult learning, education, guided awakening studies. If you make a profile on the site, we have an application and things like that. Anybody can join the site. But as far as being an actual member of Astro Warriors and getting the personalized charted course of your self-navigation and going through the consciousness exam and stuff, that's something that's different. So if you just want to be a part of the site and just have access to these different things, go ahead. But there are password-protected areas that are for the members only. If that's something that you want to do, the information is there for that as well. And that's all that I have, like I said, for the subject right now. I do thank you all for listening. And again, remember, go to the site at www.studentsofthought.com. And like I said, that we have Your Gift Makes Room, Astro Warriors, and Students of Thought, and we all are one mission, and that's to enlighten, elevate, and educate the fallen nation that is we. So I'd like to say eternal love and light be unto you all. Until next time, let my art shine about your being. Ashe. Much love to you all. Thank you for joining us.
This piece is titled Don't Wake Me. I dream of a galaxy encountered on the other side of the rainbow, a place where my ancestors ascend upon departing this realm. I dream of a euphoric existence with no confusion looming, no adversity reproducing its offspring in multiple sets. And in this galaxy I reign as Nubian goddess supreme, a mental warrior trained to eradicate blatant negative attacks with one thought, capable of flight, sight, and all that. I think of a location whether it exists or not, and I create it, perfecting it more with each thought. I dream of a world with pink skies and purple clouds that rain down secretions of cosmic love. No evil would dare take up residence, repulsed by its energy of blissful love in concentrated form. I dream this galaxy will have oceans of honey's golden glow, and the birds fellowship with our kind. No defining species lines, we are all simply one in time. Perfect, beautiful, no pollution, no wars, just love. I dream of a place where hurt isn't a word and hate has never been heard of, just love. A land where we are free to be ourselves, no discrimination based on color, gender, or wealth. Yeah, I dare to dream big. In fact, I dream in astronomical proportions. If I don't, who will? Can you see my dream amidst the scene we reside in? If you care enough to visualize these things, then my dream is your dream, making our dream a strong thing that can be dreamed into being our reality. The power of collective thought can make the impossible to be brought forth. So dream it, see it, let us aim to so be it. Thank you.